Before you choose, I'd like to ask you to do something that may feel unfamiliar for the next few moments. Don't try to be logical. Don't search for the right answer. And don't choose the key you think you should choose. Simply notice which one quietly asks for your attention. Sometimes, our first instinct reaches a conclusion before our conscious mind has time to explain it, not because it's magical, not because it predicts the future, but because your attention is rarely random. It often moves towards something that already exists inside you, a thought you've been avoiding, a feeling you've been carrying, or a part of yourself that's been waiting to be noticed. Throughout history, keys have meant far more than opening doors. A key can represent access, permission, responsibility, knowledge, freedom, or change. There are doors in life that remain closed, not because they're locked, but because we never reach for the key. And sometimes, the hardest door to unlock is the one inside ourselves. Today, you're looking at 4 very different keys. Each one was shaped by a different world. One was born from time, one from knowledge, one from the stars, and one from machinery. None of them is better than another. Each simply reflects a different way of moving through life. As you look at them, don't ask, which one is the luckiest? Instead, ask, which one feels strangely familiar? Perhaps your eyes returned to one key again and again. Perhaps one made you pause, without knowing why. That small hesitation may be more meaningful than certainty. Psychologists have long observed something interesting about perception. When we're presented with symbols instead of direct questions, we naturally project parts of ourselves onto them, not because the symbols contain answers, but because our own minds quietly complete the story. In many ways, you're not choosing a key. You're choosing the story your mind is already telling. That's why 2 people can look at exactly the same image and experience something completely different. Neither person is wrong. They're simply seeing themselves through different symbols. So before we begin, take one last look. Don't compare, don't analyze. Simply notice which key feels like it belongs in your hand. Hold that choice in your mind, because over the next few minutes, we're not going to discover what the key means. We're going to explore what your choice might quietly reveal about the way you see yourself, the way you move through life, and perhaps the door you've been standing in front of without even realizing it. Key 1. The pocket watch key. If your eyes were drawn to the pocket watch key, there's a chance that time has become one of the quietest forces shaping your life. Not because you're always checking the clock, but because somewhere inside you, there's an ongoing conversation with the past or the future. Some people spend years wishing they could go back. Others spend just as many years waiting for the perfect moment to finally begin. Both are different expressions of the same relationship with time. This key often attracts people who carry invisible timelines. You may find yourself thinking, I should have figured this out by now. I started too late. They're already ahead of me. Or perhaps, if I wait a little longer, everything will finally make sense. Without realizing it, life becomes measured against an imaginary schedule, a schedule that nobody actually gave you, yet somehow it feels painfully real. Time has a strange way of influencing us. It doesn't only measure our days, it quietly measures our expectations, how successful we believe we should be, how quickly we should heal, how soon we should find love. how early we should understand ourselves. Eventually, the calendar becomes something much heavier than paper. It becomes a judge. But here's something worth noticing. Time itself has never asked you to compete. Clocks don't compare one life to another. People do. The pressure often comes from stories, not from time itself. Stories about where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to own, who you're supposed to become before a certain age. When those stories become loud enough, we stop living our own pace. We begin chasing someone else's timeline without ever asking whether it belongs to us. That's why this key doesn't only symbolize time, it symbolizes permission. Permission to stop treating every delay as a personal failure. Think about the gears inside an old pocket watch. Each gear turns at a different speed. Some rotate quickly, others move almost invisibly. Yet remove one, and the entire watch stops working. None of the gears are late. None of them are early. Each moves exactly when it needs to. Human lives rarely feel that way because we only notice visible milestones, graduations, careers, relationships, money, recognition. We compare chapters without knowing how different the stories really are. Perhaps the reason this key called you isn't because you're behind. Perhaps you're simply tired of measuring your worth with someone else's clock. Maybe what you've been searching for isn't more time. Maybe it's freedom from the belief that you've already run out of it. Take one more look at this key. Notice the watch that surrounds it, the gears that continue turning. Whether anyone is watching or not, life has always kept moving. The question is, have you been moving with it? Or have you been spending all your energy looking at the clock instead? Key 2. The library key. If the library key was the one that caught your attention, you may have a relationship with knowledge that's more complicated than it appears. Some people seek knowledge because they're curious. Others seek knowledge because it makes them feel prepared. And then there are people who keep collecting more and more answers because they're afraid of making the wrong decision. At first, it feels responsible. Read one more book, watch one more video, take one more course, think a little longer, wait until you're completely ready. It sounds wise, but somewhere along the way, preparation quietly becomes hesitation. You begin believing that certainty is a requirement before action. The problem is, certainty rarely arrives. Life doesn't hand us complete instructions before asking us to move. It asks us to move first and understand later. Ancient libraries have always carried a strange feeling. They hold thousands of books, millions of words, countless lifetimes of experience. Yet even if someone read every single page, they still wouldn't know exactly how their own story ends. Because knowledge can explain the world, but it cannot live your life for you. Perhaps that's why this key isn't lying on a shelf. It's floating, untouched, waiting, as though reminding you that wisdom isn't something you own. It's something you continue growing into. Think about the people you've admired throughout your life. Were they admired because they knew everything, or because they had the courage to act? Despite not knowing everything, there comes a moment when another answer isn't what changes your life. A decision does. Some doors remain closed, not because you're missing information, but because you're waiting for information that doesn't exist. The perfect sign, the perfect guarantee, the perfect certainty. Meanwhile, life continues turning its pages without waiting. Perhaps you've experienced this before. You knew exactly what needed to happen. You understood the situation completely. You could even give someone else the perfect advice. But when it came to your own life, you hesitated, not because you lacked wisdom, because wisdom and courage are not the same thing. The library key gently asks a difficult question. How much of what you're still searching for is something you truly don't know, and how much is something you already understand, but haven't fully trusted yourself to do? There is a quiet difference between learning and hiding inside learning. One expands your world, the other delays it. The library will always have another book, another idea, another perspective. Knowledge never truly ends, which means if you're waiting until you've learned everything, you may spend your entire life preparing without ever opening the door that mattered most. So perhaps this key appeared before you today, not to encourage you to search for more answers, but to remind you that some of the answers you've been looking for have been waiting inside you for much longer than you realize. Key 3. The Celestial Key. If your attention settled on the Celestial Key, perhaps what called to you wasn't the stars themselves, but the feeling they create. When we look into the night sky, something unusual happens. For a brief moment, our own problems seem smaller, not because they disappear, but because we're reminded that our lives exist within something far greater than ourselves. The universe has always inspired two very different reactions. For some people, it creates wonder. For others, it creates uncertainty. Both begin with the same realization: there is so much we cannot control. And perhaps that's exactly why this key feels different from the others. Unlike a key made of iron or brass, this one appears to be made of light. You couldn't hold it tightly. You couldn't lock it away. Its value doesn't come from what it controls, but from what it invites you to trust. Many of us spend years trying to predict everything. We plan every step. We imagine every possible outcome. We prepare for conversations that never happen. We replay mistakes that can no longer be changed. It feels like responsibility, but sometimes it's simply another way of searching for certainty in a world that has never promised it. Look at the stars. They don't all shine with the same brightness. They don't appear all at once. Some of the light reaching your eyes tonight began its journey hundreds or even thousands of years ago. You're not seeing those stars as they are. You're seeing them as they once were. In a strange way, our understanding of ourselves often works the same way. We continue defining ourselves by old versions: the person who failed, the person who was rejected, the person who stayed silent, the person who believed they weren't enough. Those memories keep shining long after we've already changed, and without noticing, we mistake old light for our present reality. Perhaps the celestial key appears when it's time to ask a quieter question. Who are you? Without the stories you've been repeating for years. Not the version created by fear, not the version shaped by disappointment, not the version built from someone else's expectations, but the one that's been quietly growing while you were too busy looking backward. The universe never rushes. Galaxies don't compete with one another. Planets don't apologize for moving at different speeds. Everything follows its own path, without needing permission. Human beings often forget that. We compare our journeys to people whose destinations were never meant to be ours. And then we wonder why our lives feel disconnected. Perhaps what drew you toward this key wasn't the beauty of the stars. perhaps it was the quiet reminder that not every answer needs to arrive today. Some questions are meant to stay with us for a while, not to confuse us, but to change us. Maybe the next step in your life isn't finding complete certainty. Maybe it's learning to move forward, even while parts of the path remain hidden. Sometimes, the darkest sky is also the one that reveals the most stars. And perhaps, the parts of yourself you haven't fully discovered yet have been there all along, waiting for you to finally look up. Key 4. The mechanical key. If the mechanical key was the one you chose, you may have spent much of your life believing that everything can be fixed if you simply work hard enough. There's something comforting about machines. Every gear has a purpose, every movement creates another, every problem seems to have a logical solution. If something stops working, replace the broken part, tighten the loose screw, repair what's damaged, start again. Life, however, rarely follows those rules, and yet, many of us continue treating ourselves as though we were machines. When we're exhausted, we tell ourselves to keep going. When we're overwhelmed, we call ourselves weak. When something inside us begins to break, we assume we simply haven't been disciplined enough. Slowly, our value becomes measured by productivity, not by peace, not by joy, not by who we are, but by how much we can produce, how much we can endure, how much we can carry without stopping. This key often appears to people who have become incredibly reliable, the person everyone depends on, the one who always finds a solution, the one who keeps everything moving. From the outside, that strength looks admirable, but strength has a quiet cost. When people become used to your reliability, they sometimes stop asking whether you're tired. Eventually, you stop asking yourself, machines don't complain. Machines don't need rest. Machines don't feel disappointment, but you do. And pretending otherwise doesn't make you stronger. It only makes your exhaustion harder to notice. Look closely at the gears surrounding this key. Each one turns because another gear supports it. No single gear carries the entire machine. The system works because the weight is shared. Human beings often forget this. We convince ourselves that asking for help is failure, that slowing down is laziness, that resting means falling behind. But perhaps the strongest systems aren't the ones that never stop. They're the ones designed to keep functioning, because every part knows its limits. Maybe you've become so focused on keeping everything together that you've forgotten what you're actually trying to protect: a career, a family, a dream, a reputation. None of those things mean very much if you lose yourself while holding them. The mechanical key doesn't ask whether you're capable. It quietly asks something much more uncomfortable. Who would you be if you no longer had to prove your worth through constant effort? Would you still believe you were enough? Or has achievement slowly become the only language through which you recognize your own value? Sometimes, the most important repair isn't fixing another problem. It's allowing yourself to stop believing that you're broken simply because you're human. Perhaps that's why this key called to you, not because you need to work harder, but because you've been carrying far more than any one person was ever meant to carry alone. Now you've seen all 4 keys: the pocket watch key, the library key, the celestial key, and the mechanical key. Perhaps one description felt immediately familiar. Perhaps another surprised you, or perhaps you found pieces of yourself in more than one. That isn't unusual. We're never just one story. We're a collection of experiences, memories, beliefs, and quiet questions that continue changing throughout our lives. These keys were never meant to define you. They were meant to slow you down long enough to notice something you may have overlooked. Sometimes, the greatest value of a symbol isn't the meaning it gives you, it's the conversation it begins within you. So before you leave, I'd like to ask you one final question. If someone quietly placed your chosen key into your hand today, what door would you finally have the courage to unlock? Not someday, not when everything feels perfect, but now. Leave your answer in the comments. You may discover that someone else has been standing in front of the very same door. And if this quiet journey gave you a new perspective, I hope you'll return for the next one. Until then, keep listening to the quiet voice within